Hi, good day. My name is Dr. Mark Hardwick, and I am the managing director of a company called The Guardian. If you're watching this video, it probably means that you're trying to figure out who you should choose as your designated safeguarding officer, your DSO. And I want to start by saying this plainly. Choosing a DSO is not an admin decision. It's a values decision. Because when you appoint a DSO, you're not just filling a role. You're appointing someone who stands watch, someone who protects the vulnerable, someone trusted to act when others freeze or avoid. In many ways, a good DSO is like a knight, not because of the title, but because of what they represent: honor, duty, discipline, and courage. And here's a phrase I want you to remember because it captures the heart of what we're talking about. A DSO holds the line. Now, before we talk about who that person should be, we need to be clear on what the role actually is. Safety and safeguarding are not the same thing. Many organizations understand safety, but before we look at the difference between safety and safeguarding, let's understand what I mean when I say an organization. In its simplest terms, from a safeguarding perspective, most people will be thinking about their organization. Maybe that's a school or a sports club or a national federation. But to be clear, for the purpose of this video, I want you to know that when I'm referring to organizations, I'm also referring to things like tours, competitions, and when you travel to games. Yes, these teams, these elements that travel, they are organizations as well. They're temporary organizations, but when you're traveling with vulnerable students or athletes, that trip or tour should be treated as if it is an organization that needs diligent safeguarding, and your DSO needs to be the correct person. Actually, when on tour or when traveling, the tour DSO needs even greater vigilance. But if you understand more about that better, then I suggest you have a look at completing the tour DSO course. Now, back to the difference between safety and safeguarding. Safety is about protecting people from hazards and accidents, which can be created through facilities, equipment, physical risk, transport, procedures. And so safety needs to make sure that the environment is not dangerous. But safeguarding is different. Safeguarding is about protecting people, from harm that comes through human behavior, from power dynamics, or from relationships. Things like bullying, harassment, grooming, exploitation, emotional abuse, sexual harassment, sexual assault, and boundary violations. And here's something important. Safeguarding risk isn't only caused by deliberate abuse. Safeguarding risk can also be created by negligence or incompetence or poor practice. What I mean is, even if somebody didn't intend harm, but they fail in their duty of care through weak supervision, ignoring warning signs, not following procedure, not reporting, or simply not doing what they were supposed to do, harm can still happen. And when that happens, the DSO must step in. That DSO must hold the line. So, what is the DSO expected to do? Well, let's talk about that DSO role. A big mistake many organizations, remember I defined organizations just now, so it could be tours as well, but a big mistake that organizations make is choosing a DSO based on who they think would be good when something goes wrong. In other words, who looks qualified for reactive safeguarding? And so they look at choosing an HR person or a counselor or a psychologist, a policeman or a security person, a discipline officer, someone who's good in a crisis. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying those people can't be good DSOs. They certainly can. But here's the truth. Those skill sets do not automatically qualify someone to be a good DSO. because the DSO job is significantly more proactive than it is reactive. Most of the DSO's work is not investigating a crisis, counseling someone through a trauma, or running a disciplinary process. Most of the DSO work is building safeguarding structures, driving awareness and compliance, removing gray areas of confusion, spotting poor practice early, ensuring reporting pathways work, keeping records and follow-ups tight, and creating a culture where safeguarding risk struggles to breathe. The people I mentioned just now, your HR person and your counselor and your police and your discipline staff, are often best understood as the resources that a DSO may need to call on in a specific situation. So don't go and choose your DSO based on the person you think will be good in a crisis, because your DSO choose your DSO based on who can prevent the crisis. Sorry about that. Because prevention is not passive. Prevention is leadership. Remember I told you a DSO holds the line. So, who should you choose? Well, here are the 5 traits that matter the most that you should consider when deciding who to appoint as your DSO. So number 1, your DSO must not be conflict adverse. A DSO is not a people pleaser. A DSO is someone who can have the hard conversation, who can challenge poor practice and inappropriate behavior, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's someone who is popular, senior, or influential. Safeguarding sometimes requires you to stand alone for a moment and still do the right thing. That's honor. The next point I want to talk to you about in terms of your DSO is they need to be strong in admin. Safeguarding lives and dies in documentation and follow through. A strong DSO doesn't just care, they act, they record, they follow up, they close the loop. Because when something happens, organizations will be asked this: what did you do? When did you do it? And where is the proof? A sloppy safeguarding file is not just messy, it's dangerous for those you protect and the organization that you're the safeguarding for. Excuse me. Your third point is your DSO must be mature. Safeguarding situations can be sensitive, emotional, and high pressure. A DSO needs maturity, discretion, and judgment. Someone stable enough to carry the weight without making it about themselves. Number 4, your DSO must have a strong need to follow rules. Safeguarding is not a freestyle environment. A DSO must respect policy, procedure, and reporting obligations, not because they love paperwork, but because rules create safety and consistency creates trust. And then finally, number 5, your DSO must be someone who is confident. Not arrogant, but confident. They must be able to speak clearly, give direction, and make decisions under pressure. Because when safeguarding is tested, hesitation becomes risk. So, those 5 personality requirements that you want your DSO to have: number 1, they must not be conflict adverse. Number 2, they must be mature. Number 3, they must have an ability to follow admin or do their admin right. Number 4, a strong need to follow rules. And number 5, confidence. When something else then something else to bear in mind. Your DSO does not need operational authority. They need safeguarding authority. Another mistake that organizations make is assuming the DSO must be the person with the biggest operational title. The DSO does not have to be the chairman of the organization. They don't have to be the CDM or the GMT in a sports organization. They don't have to be the principal in a school. It doesn't even have to be a manager or an HOD or a head coach. The DSO needs safeguarding authority. If you appoint the right person and then you empower them through policy to make safeguarding decisions, both proactively and reactively, they don't need to run the organization. They need to be trusted to protect the people within it, because a DSO holds the line. The DSO must be appointed, trained, and empowered. Because a DSO cannot just exist in name. They must be appointed formally and visibly, so everyone knows who the safeguarding lead of this organization or tour is. Then they must be trained properly, so they know what to do and how to do it. And finally, they must be empowered, so they have the authority and the backing to act if they need to. So what does empowered look like in practice? Well, it means that the DSO has direct access to leadership when needed. The DSO is allowed to challenge poor practice of anyone, literally anyone, without being punished for it. The DSO has time and capacity to do the job properly. Leadership must back the DSO's safeguarding calls, even when it's awkward. And the DSO has the authority to pause anything that's going on, stop anything that's going on, or escalate when the risk is present. But they need to be able to go, this is stopping now, whatever it may be. This is pausing now, whatever it may be. If a DSO has responsibility but no authority, then the role can't function. And that creates risk. And lastly, if your organization is running tours, excursions, camps, retreats, or overnight events, safeguarding becomes more complex and the stakes are higher. So if someone is responsible for a safeguarding on tour, it is important that they complete additional training as a tour DSO, because on tour, the environment changes, supervision changes, boundaries blur much, much faster, and safeguarding decisions often need to be made quickly. So in closing, yes, choose the right person, but also once you've chosen that person, honor the role. Make it something people respect because you respect it. Make it something worthy. Make it something your DSO can be proud of, because a strong DSO doesn't just protect individuals. They protect the character of the whole organization. A DSO holds the line. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Good luck with your selection, and God bless.